I'm Henry Cole, and on this brand new series I'm taking the show on the road, riding Britain's best routes.
God, it's just fantastic.
And hitting the highways of Europe.
That ride was unbelievable.
Back home,
Please take a look at this.
I'm going to restore a BSA Gold Star. Celebrate Britain's motorcycle heritage.
It's just a privilege to be able to ride it.
And test ride some of the best new British bikes.
It's a Marmite bike, isn't it? You either love it or hate it.
On tonight's show, I escaped to the Algarve for some winter sun.
Now that motorway was utterly glorious.
Take my BSA frame to the cleaners.
Daz, what do you reckon?
That's perfect, mate.
And ride a 1908 Triumph on the Pioneer Run.
What is the likelihood of us getting to Brighton?
Out of 10?
Yeah. 2.
This is the Motorbike Show.
Well, welcome to the Motorbike Show and to my search for some winter sun right here in Portugal.
I'm in the northern Algarve, one of Europe's best kept secrets. Beautiful towns, luscious landscapes, and for us bikers, empty roads in tip-top condition. Today's ride is going to take me from Faro, the biggest city in the Algarve, over to the small town of Castro Marin, then up to Alcoutim on the Guadiana River, and if I get a fair wind in me sails, onto Matola.
Well, that's where we're going, slightly off the beaten track, but what are we going to go on?
This is a 2019 Triumph Street Scrambler, a pumped-up 900cc engine, a pimped-up set of pipes, and loads of retro detailing. The only thing it doesn't have is a full tank.
Now, confusion, right? So there's a yellow one, I've got no idea. The black one I'm guessing is diesel, and these two green ones I think must be unleaded. If I get it wrong, this is about as far as we get. If I get it right, happy days.
For your information, the yellow pumps are for diesel of a higher grade than the black pumps.
So that's interesting, right? So that was basically bone dry, and 12 euros nearly, so probably that's about the same as the UK. I used to get really nervous about riding in cities around the world, you know, so if you ride into Los Angeles or New York or something, you know, the day before riding in I was like, oh my God, you know, this is hardcore, man, urban sprawl, urban mayhem at its worst. But actually, you know what, over the years I've realised, you know, a city is only as big, right, as the bit that you're in. So it doesn't matter how big that huge city or how threatening it is. All you've really got to worry about is the area that you're riding in. I know that sounds weird, but if you're safe in that, then any city's okay. So don't get stressed about how big the city is. Just make sure that your little area of it, you're safe in. Anyway, always onward.
The first stretch of the road is the A22 motorway, a delightfully empty highway, which was only completed in 2003. The bad news is that it is a toll road, but the good news is that the Portuguese road system was recently voted the best in Europe and second best in the world.
Now that motorway was utterly glorious, but here's the health warning, okay? Now Portugal as a country has the worst record for road fatalities in Europe. Why? Because supposedly people who live here are pretty aggressive on the roads and also love to speed. So the police have tried to counter that by giving on the spot very heavy fines. So basically ride defensively firstly, secondly constantly look in your mirror, and thirdly bring a lot of cash.
In a moment, we'll take a look around this delightful town, but first, let's talk restoration.
Now then, if you've been watching previous shows, you may remember that Sammy and I have been restoring a BSA Gold Star. Now we've stripped it, we've got a bare frame, and it's time for the bare frame to make a date with our Bobby Dazzler for some new paint.
So I've taken it down to that motorcycling Michelangelo, Mr. Daz Jenkins.
This is one of my favourite parts of a restoration here at Daz's. Daz.
Hiya, mate.
Now look, I've got all the stuff for you.
Yeah.
It's time for a bit of blasting. Now.
Oh, that's nice.
It's nice, and I'll tell you what, the reason why it survived so well is because the skirt that was all over it basically protected it.
Preserved it.
I reckon, yeah. Now look, we've got a whole collection of stuff here, mate, and I need your advice because we want to try and keep this, obviously, as original as possible.
Okay.
Now, normally we'd come and powder coat, but obviously these back in the day were wet painted, so that probably needs to be wet paint, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that perhaps we won't see, like the seat base, etc.
It's going to get covered anyway.
Yeah. So just for ease and cost as well.
Exactly. It's about 3 times more expensive to paint it than it is to powder coat it.
That's not what you've always told me, man. You've always said that it's round about the same price.
I've changed my mind on this one.
Yeah, I know, as always.
Before Daz can get going, it's Sean's job to sandblast everything. He starts by prepping the frame. Delicate bits like the headstock and the precious frame number have to be protected before he gets his blasting gun out.
I stand here month after month waiting for stuff to come out, and you're always just slightly concerned that the frame may be awful underneath. But in this particular case, I think all the mud and detritus has protected it, but we'll see in about 10 minutes. Well, the coffee is getting better, but not much.
Though all this gear looks very modern, shot blasting was invented in 1870 by an American called Benjamin Chew Tilghman, a catchy name if ever there was one. Back in the day, sand was their main abrasive, but these days you can use anything from baking soda to crushed up walnut shells to, believe it or not, dry ice. 20 minutes later, he's done.
Daz is finished.
Let's go have a look.
Oh, mate, look, I wasn't that worried, which makes a change coming here, waiting outside, because I thought it was pretty mint, and it is, isn't it?
It's lovely, that.
Daz, what do you reckon?
Nah, that's perfect, mate. Ain't a lot to do with that, is it?
God blimey, what is it, like 60 years old or something? What's next, Daz?
Now,
Yeah, what?
I've got to wet paint it.
Daz starts by laying down a grey acrylic primer coat. This seals the metal, provides a good surface for the main coat and gives me the opportunity to nip down the road for a proper coffee. When I get back though, Daz has spotted something.
Looks glorious in primer.
Yeah. Has showed up a few imperfections, though.
It has.
Didn't notice that before.
Oh yeah, look.
I don't know if it's supposed to have one of them on there.
I wonder if that's lying around. Shall I go and have a little rummage in the blast area?
The missing lug did hold the rear foot peg.
Hey Sean, I've lost a lug, mate.
While I go on a wild lug chase, Daz gets on with the real work. Again, he uses hard-wearing acrylic paint, but this time he's much more precise, first painting the edges and all the tricky bits, and then filling in the gaps in nice sweeping movements. 2 coats later, he's almost done, but I remain a lug-free zone.
If I find it, I'll
Yeah.
send it in the post.
Yeah, along with the invoice. Mate, that is astounding.
Nice and flat now, isn't it? Flowing out.
Oh, God. And really simple, actually, in a process.
Yeah.
You know, little bit of primer, couple of coats,
That's all it needs.
and it's just how it should have been. Oh, Daz. Oh, it's just so exciting, the start, the proper start of a restoration, you know. Oh, yes, please, mate. Thank you so much, dude. As always, the Bobby Dazzler. Huh?
Well, I'm glad you're happy.
Mate, happy, I'm ecstatic.
Coming up, I celebrate the Cb750, the first superbike.
How come the British motorcycle industry didn't see this coming?
And get to grips with a vintage Triumph.
Is that the throttle?
Sort of.
Okay, fine. That's
You
all
can
I need
work
to
it
know.
out.
Well, welcome back to our little Portuguese adventure. Now, this ride is supposed to be populated with long sweeping bends and beautiful vistas, but before we crack off, I thought I might have a quick whiz round town.
Castro Marin is a typical small Algarve town which dates back to the Roman era. It has a population of 7,000, a medieval castle, and is an ideal pit stop if you want to stretch your legs mid-ride and take in a bit of local culture.
Hey look, so just a little bit of history, all right? Castro Marin was started in the 8th century by the Moors, who created the castle fortress, which is still here today. So this little town was actually relatively strategic. But hey, look at the views.
Every August they stage a wild medieval festival. But for the rest of the year, this place is so laid back that even the laundry takes a siesta.
Oh my God, it's lovely. Hey look, Castro Marin is typical of the Portuguese villages you're going to find when you're riding here, with the whitewashed stone walls, the terracotta pan tiles, and loads of cobbled streets. Now the cobbles in sunshine, we all know, great to ride on. In the wet though, an absolute nightmare.
And talking of riding, time to rejoin the Scrambler.
Okay, well look, I can't wait any longer. I've got to get on the road and get riding. In the meantime, now, this year is the 50th anniversary of the motorcycle that heralded the demise of the British motorcycle industry. And that bike was the Honda Cb750.
So to celebrate that epoch-making event, I've got one in my paddock.
And well, this is it. The Honda Cb750 from 1969. This one actually is 1970, but don't worry about that. The bottom line is that how come the British motorcycle industry didn't see this coming? I mean, it's candy apple red metallic. How could you miss it?
At the time, the British bike industry was in the doldrums, with old-fashioned, underpowered machines whose engines hadn't changed much since the mid-50s. The Honda, by contrast, was great to look at and full of innovative engineering.
Firstly, inline 4-cylinder motor, unheard of, with 4x4 pipes. How glorious was that as a starter? It also had a single disc brake on the front, which again was a revelation. It had rev counter and speedo, it had indicators, it had mirrors, it had a 5-gallon petrol tank. It was basically a motorcycle that had never been seen before, with all that accoutrement on one specific bike. But most importantly, unlike my grandfather, it didn't dribble oil.
Feel when I dance with you, we move like the sea.
50 years on, how does it ride? This is the first time I've been on one, and my first impression is that this thing is amazing. The frame is not quite as good as the engine, but the big American-style bars make it a comfortable ride, and the engine has bags of power and a great throaty roar.
When they came out, the criticism was, oh, they're a little bit sanitised and they don't have any soul and all that kind of stuff. Now, 50 years on, I have to tell you, this is absolutely a classic. 50 years on, let's look at pricing, shall we? A Norton Commando in immaculate nick like this, probably 11 to 12.5 grand perhaps. This motorcycle is for sale for £18,500.
Some people call me the space cowboy.
As the 60s swung into the 70s, there were updates, revamps and multiple variations of the Cb750, culminating in my favourite, the Cb750 F. double overhead cams, 0 to 60 in 5 seconds, and a top speed of 121 miles per hour. This one's the proud possession of Phil from the Honda Owners Club.
Now then, to me, Phil, right, when I had my Super Dream, this was the thing to have. Now, why do you love this bike?
I fell in love with it the day it came into the motorcycle shop when I was working.
Did you?
I set my heart on buying one, which I later did. I owned it for 3 years, and then I kind of let it go.
Did you?
Exchanged it for a car, believe it or not.
Did you? I can't believe you did that, mate.
And then I think from that day till the day I actually acquired this baby, I wanted another one.
But it was a radical departure from this one. I mean, I know there was the F1 and F2 or whatever in between, but double overhead cam?
Double overhead cam. They changed all the styling of the wheels. You know, they went from spokes to the Comstar wheels were inverted to start with, and then they changed them to that style. Compared to a modern bike, you have to ride these things different. The amount of rubber you put on the road with these is a lot less than a modern bike, and the brakes on them are not fantastic. But I mean, I've just ridden 30 miles on this morning, and it was an absolute pleasure.
Production wound down over the 90s and stopped in 2003, but that wasn't the end of the story.
So talking about lineage, let's bring things up to the present day, shall we?
Recognise it? This is the brand new CB1100, just released this year to celebrate the anniversary. 50 years on, we've entered the retro era, and this bike is a perfect example, as Honda dealer Simon tells me.
They come in 2 models, and I've got to say this is the model that people seem to go for, because it is the real retro look, you know, with the spoked wheels, and I think it evokes memories of the early '69 Cb750. As you see the colour, the tank, Honda I think have really taken this just a step above everybody else. Just making sure that it is a genuine retro, not in just the way it looks, but the way it rides as well. You know, right the way from the riding position to the sound of the engine, the sound of the exhaust. They've put a lot of detail into this bike.
I'm sure, man. I'm sure. And I tell you what, as a legacy, 50 years this year since the CB750, I do believe that's a very special motorcycle as well. Will it be a classic in 50 years' time? Will we be talking about it? Well, I won't be, I'll be Elvis, but whoever's taken over, well, who knows? I won't find out, will I? Because I'll be dead.
And on that cheerful note, back in Portugal, I'm heading out of Castro Marin on the IC27, another fantastic road, which looks as if it was only laid yesterday. Half an hour in, I passed the Odelit Dam, known to the locals as the Blue Dragon because of its spiky shape.
That ride was unbelievable. I am in heaven. You're riding in the perfect temperature with no one else on the roads, just you, the bike, and, as we thought, the sweeping bends and the beautiful vistas. This motorcycle is glorious, I have to say. If you really wanted to stay within the speed limit, then you could really pin it on a seriously larger bike, but this is perfect for me to kick back, take in the views, and to actually celebrate being in this landscape. Like all of us, we spend hundreds of miles in the pouring rain or the freezing cold, and then you come to this kind of riding, and this is what makes it all worthwhile.
As the road continues northwards, it's beautifully empty as ever. The sun's still shining and the bike's behaving perfectly.
Now obviously here in Portugal I'm riding a state-of-the-art Triumph, but over 100 years ago Triumph were already leading the field in motorcycle development. So to celebrate those heady days, Sam and I thought we might just enter the Pioneer Run.
Give me that old-time religion, good religion that it used to be. Old-time religion, hallelujah, good enough to be that old-time religion.
Well, welcome to Epsom and welcome to the Pioneer Run. Now, this is the challenge, right? There are 300 motorcyclists all on pre-1915 motorcycles, and they've got to get from here in Epsom to Brighton, 47 miles down the track. What could possibly go wrong?
It's the 80th anniversary of this famous event, which has been run every year since 1930, wars, plagues and snowstorms excepting. As organiser Arnold tells me, around here 1915 bikes are considered positively modern.
Class 1 is the very early bikes up to 1904.
Oh right, blimey, that is early.
Class 2 takes us up to 1910, and thereafter Class 3 are all the others up to 1950.
So that I think means that I'm in Class 2. I hope Sam's getting the bikes ready.
My companion for today is my great mate and biking buddy, Sam Lovegrove.
This is Sam's, okay, and it's called a Bat.
It's 1912, built in Penge, not far from here.
All right, it's coming home.
Yeah, 1000cc Jap V-twin, capable of 80 mile an hour when new apparently, but no real brakes.
So you're telling me that you can't stop on a motorcycle that potentially could do 80 miles an hour?
Yeah, great, isn't it?
Yeah, lovely. Okay, what am I riding? Well, thanks to the National Motorcycle Museum, who've lent me this motorcycle, I am riding, which Sam has been fettling, a 1908 Triumph Roadster. I think it's about 3.5 horsepower, is it?
Yeah, 550cc,
Right.
single cylinder.
So basically, I just pedal it, right? And then that's got to be the throttle.
It's the sort of,
Okay, look, is that the throttle?
sort of.
Okay, fine, that's
You
all
can
I need
work
to
it
know.
out.
And then this here is supposedly the clutch, right?
It's-
Well, it's not really a clutch.
It's
It
an
just,
on and off,
It's
isn't
on
it?
and off. It just
Yeah.
engages things. Okay, out of 10, right? What is the likelihood of us getting to Brighton?
Both of us, on both of these machines running,
Look.
50 mile away. Out of 10,
Yeah.
2.
Yeah, I think that's egging it, actually.
So if you could lay your bets, please, we're under starter's orders. This bike didn't have a kickstart, so I have to pedal on the spot to get going. My 1908 Roadster had a top speed of 50 miles an hour, but cruised most comfortably at between 30 and 40. Whether we'll ever get anywhere near that is anyone's guess. Within 3 miles, my bike keeps stalling and Sam's carb is well flooded.
I have to tell you, this is a proper challenge. 47 miles feels like a world circumnavigation right now, doesn't it?
And we're losing the pack, so we don't know where we're going.
We have no idea where we're going.
all
Have
right.
you got a sat-nav thing?
Not interested, let's go.
We get back on the road, but a few miles later,
We're about 5 miles in now, and we're beginning to have issues. My problem is finger trouble, or foot trouble. There's nothing wrong with this bike. Sam's, on the other hand, has problems.
within a few minutes, the engine whisperer has got it going again, and for the next 30 miles, it's plain sailing, bar the odd squall. But as the miles clock up, or would do if I had a speedometer, the unscheduled stops become a bit more regular.
What's happened to you?
My magneto timing's slipping.
All right, mate. So basically, we've got a little bit of spannering to do.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure exactly. I mean, I oiled her,
Yeah.
right, just as I approached the traffic light.
Yeah.
And then when I revved her up and slipped the clutch as best you can, yeah, when the lights went green, she just wouldn't do nothing. And there was
Okay.
a hell of a lot of smoke.
Yeah, it sounds like you've over-oiled it, so we'll...
You tell me to oil it every few miles, and that's what I've been doing.
That's great. I think it's better than under-oiling it.
Yeah, okay, mate. Well, at least I've done something vaguely right. Now, we were 2 out of 10 a while ago.
Yeah.
What do we reckon on getting to Brighton now?
I'm actually going to... Well, pending yours firing up again, there not being anything hideous wrong with that, I'm going to say a 7.
A 7?
Coming up, I get the lowdown on a Portuguese festival.
Does anyone fall in?
Yes.
Yeah, do they? Slightly probably inebriated.
But there's nothing to celebrate on our pioneer run.
We haven't made very good progress since you were last with us.
Welcome back to the Motorbike Show and my trip through the Algarve. After a gorgeous ride from Castro Marin, I'm just getting into Alcoutim, a Portuguese town right next to the border with Spain. This is one of the most historic towns in this region, so for anyone doing this road trip, it's a great place to stretch your legs and fill your stomach.
Well, please take a look. We've arrived at this beautiful little town called Alcoutim. And the road here, well, I just can't get enough of it. I didn't want this little town to turn up. Now then, over there you would think is another Portuguese village, but it isn't, because that is Spain. Now, to find out more about this beautiful little town and the surrounding area, I've come here to meet a man called Juan.
Meet Juan, a fellow biker who, when he's not riding the roads, heads up the local tourist board.
Well, now look, right, this is Portugal.
Yes.
That is Spain. Was there ever conflict between the two on the river?
In the old times, they have, but now we are friends.
They're so friendly, in fact, that every year they stage a festival celebrating the long history of cross-border trade, or to give it its technical name, smuggling. The Contraband Festival is so popular, they even erect a temporary bridge across the river.
We have about 4,000, 5,000 each day crossing the river.
Does anyone fall in?
Yes.
Yeah, do they? Yeah, okay. Slightly probably inebriated.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the rest of the year, Alcoutim is a wonderfully tranquil town, the perfect pit stop before you get back on the road.
Now, if there's one person who I know would love to be riding with me here in Portugal, it's engine builder Alan Millyard, but hopefully he's just as happy in his shed finishing off me engine.
The engine in question is £80 of prime British engineering, which came to us totally seized. Last time round, me and Alan stripped it down to its bare components.
Yes!
Since then, those components have undergone a radical transformation.
Well, I had all the parts vapor blasted. They're all nice and clean now. And the cylinder, I've done the rebore, got a new piston. It's got new big end rollers, so that's got no play. And the cylinder head's been all reconditioned, vapor blasted, valves, new valves, all ground in, all ready to go back together.
The Gold Star engine has 6 major parts, held together by 50-odd nuts and bolts. Alan's task for today is to put those parts together in exactly the right order. The first thing to go in is the oil pump, a small but vital part of the engine, held in place by 4 bolts. Then Alan goes from little to large, getting ready to insert the crankshaft, first by lubricating it with special grease and then by prepping the crankcases.
So the first thing we're going to do is put some gasket seal around this crankcase joint here. So when we put the crankshaft in, I can lower that case on, directly on, and put in 4 bolts. And that's the bottom end, like assembled then. You don't need much, you need just enough.
The sealant is a silicon-based compound, which ensures that the 2 surfaces fit together to stop any oil from leaking.
Now we can lay the crankshaft in.
The crankshaft is the heart of the engine, transforming the vertical movement of the pistons into rotary motion. It's crucial that it fits perfectly.
That's it. And then this will go like that.
Compared to Alan's own marvellous creations, the BSA's engine is relatively simple, but it still has to be assembled precisely and systematically. Notches and dots on the camshafts indicate how they line up with the crankshaft. Nuts and bolts have to be torqued down evenly. And at every stage, Alan tests the components to make sure they're running smoothly.
That feels really nice now. It's a big improvement from when we rotated that when Henry was here. If it starts first kick, I'll be pleased. Maybe second at the max.
The next major task is to attach the piston and the barrel. Alan warms the metal with a blowtorch to make it easier to insert the gudgeon pin, which holds the piston in place.
A bit more. Right, that should do. So hopefully now this will just slide in beautifully. There you go, let's see.
It's not quite so easy though to get the barrel on.
And the trick is not to force anything. There we go. So now the piston should come up and down. People do make mistakes when they're making engines, building engines. It doesn't always go tick-tock together. Quite often you build it 3 times, especially if it's the first time you've done it. The thing is not to force anything. If something's not right, just stop and think something's not right, take it apart and go back again. The worst thing you can do is keep tightening the nut and thinking it's going to go down when it's not. But anyway, we'll continue with these nuts.
After a lot more fitting and fiddling, the last major part goes on, the rocker cover. Alan's mechanical mascot, Charlie Weaver, gives the customary toast, and 5 hours after he started, the assembly is done.
Basically, that's the engine assembled. I have actually got the carburettor here, which I've built, but I won't bolt that on because it'll get in the way fitting the dynamo, and we can fit that on back at Henry's when we build the bike. So that's the engine finished. It's all assembled. Quite a relatively straightforward task, I'd say.
I wish I could say the same about the Pioneer run. Everyone else seems to be getting on famously, happily pootling on down from London to Brighton. Me and his nibs, though, are, yes, you've guessed it, stuck in a lay-by.
Welcome back to the Pioneer Run. We're still here. We're nowhere near Brighton. In fact, we're 26 miles away. We haven't made very good progress since you were last with us, to the point where we actually haven't moved. But the sun is shining, Sam's spannering. It may be a van job, but we're not going to give up hope.
My bike's smoking like a chimney, and Sam's has got a problem with the ignition. But fear ye not, he's got a plan, and a toolbox.
Hold that.
Okay.
Hold it very still. So we've got to retime the ignition so that the spark occurs 7/16 of an inch before top dead centre. So I've marked my bit of welding rod.
Unbelievable.
And that is 7/16 of an inch. There we go. So now I can mark it off in here. Thank you.
Do you know what? Sometimes working with him, which I have done for years, I think, oh, I'm getting there. I understand how to strip a carburettor. And then he suddenly does something like that at the side of the road. And I know I haven't got Scooby-Doo. All I do know is thank God he's me mate.
It turns out that Sam's problem is slightly more complicated, involving intricate adjustments of a 1912 bevel drive.
This is the drive for the magneto.
Sorry, I was just dreaming of sea and Brighton and the lanes and little antique shops that has the odd petrol can in it that I could acquire before they close at 4.
Good luck with dreaming that.
Just explain to me, what is the issue?
Well, so the magneto is bevel driven on the timing side here.
Yep.
Basically, it's moving on its own, so it's slipping, so we're losing the timing. And I just can't quite work out how it holds onto the sprockets.
So if there's anyone who could work it out, it's you.
While the rest of the world rides on by, Sam carries on fettling until...
I really wanted to see Brighton. cream tea and that. Sounds good.
Oh, no, that was me.
Oh, that was you with the deco. Okay, all right.
Let's try yours.
All right, okay, so look, he's got a smile on his face. I think things might be happening.
Yeah.
Shall I just start mine, because it could have been pilot error?
Give it a go.
Do you think? Now, if mine goes, we might get a couple more miles in towards our cream tea or whatever. Or bronze medal will do, just a little bit of bronze medal. That's all we want, innit?
Get pedaling.
Oh my God! And we're off. The sun is shining, Brighton's beckoning, and all is officially good. For the moment at least. Coming up, Portugal gets better and better. But why hurry, man? It's all about the journey. But my pioneer run hangs in the balance.
From the bad news or the bad news?
Welcome back to Portugal and the delightful IC27. I'm wending my way north through the tranquil roads of the Algarve.
The views are astounding, but most especially what's amazing is the road surface. There are very few cars coming along this road, and I'm guessing that that's probably about the same throughout the whole year apart from in the holiday season. But the corners are stunning, progressive, they don't sharpen up on you, and you've got time, and this is what I love about roads like this. You've got time to enjoy the views, and that's exactly what you've got to do on a road like this. And here comes a corner. I know it's not going to tighten up on me. Okay, I'm only doing about 20 miles an hour, but why hurry, man? It's all about the journey.
And talking of the journey, back on the Pioneer Run, it's all coming to a glorious climax. Bikes are crossing the line down on Marine Drive, trophies are being handed out, and everyone is having a whale of a time. Except for me and Sam. The problem is my bike, which is stalling more than a politician on question time. Brighton beckons, but will my Triumph make it? For a few more miles, maybe, but it's not long before I too am singing the blues. It might look like it's leaking oil, but
It's not got enough oil.
Neither have I, mate. What's happened? I couldn't
It's not
hear.
oiling. It's not got enough.
Got issues, just want a clutch that
You've
works.
got to push that slowly.
Yeah, I do.
Well, maybe it's not. Maybe it's too slow. Maybe it's the other way.
Well, I've done both.
we roll on for another few miles, but then the inevitable happens.
Bad news. Do you want the bad news or the bad news?
Oh, mate, what?
It's been running so hot that the engine's feeling slightly tight, and particularly with it being borrowed, I think I wouldn't ride that again until I'd had the piston out and a bit of a clean up.
Is this where my Pioneer Run ends?
It's looking a bit that way.
Can I just thank you for one, being one of my best mates, two, supporting me the whole way down here, and three, telling me that was about to seize and getting it just in time as ever, because James at the National Motorcycle Museum will probably give you a free mug. Here, mate. Hey, we nearly made it. Next year.
Well, mine isn't broken yet.
Oh no, here we go.
Do you mind if I crack on?
No.
Yeah?
No, you get on.
So my humiliation is complete. My triumph has turned into a tragedy.
Well, I'm gutted. Really gutted.
And then, out of nowhere, inspiration strikes.
Sammy, I'm having an emotional disturbance. Now listen.
You seem a bit happy.
I'm a little bit happier. Shall I tell you why?
Go on.
I'm not going to make it to Brighton on 2 wheels, we thought.
Correct.
What about if I used the camera bike?
Yeah, fantastic.
What do you think?
Yeah, great. We're still in it.
For the last 4 hours, Johnny Focus has been using the Yamaha as a camera platform, but now it's my ticket to ride.
Hey, we're still in the game. The show must go on a V50 Yamaha.
Not exactly pioneering, but...
It's
I don't
not
know.
pioneering, but I just feel as though I've got to reach Brighton.
Pizza, anyone? It may not be a 1908 Triumph. It may not need oiling every 5 minutes. It may not qualify for a bronze medal or send me kicking and screaming to the Priory. But this bike is going to get me to Brighton. 1 hour later, we arrive. Officially, the last entrance to complete the Pioneer Run of 2019.
We've done it!
Yay! What, is this it?
This is it! This is the end! Everyone's gone home!
Really?
Yeah, quick.
Not everyone.
Well, not everyone, we haven't.
I can't believe... Look,
Mate, just put it on the stand.
can I just throw it on the floor? London to Brighton.
Come on, mate, you deserve a mega hug. All right, that's it. That's
Hey,
absolutely
great.
amazing. I've got to tell you, right, going through the last bits, I would never have made it. You are a maestro.
Traffic demon.
I have to tell you, mate, really. So look, you've made it. You will get, when we apply, probably, because they've all gone home, you will get your bronze medal.
Do you think?
Yeah, you will get your bronze medal.
I hope.
Hang on, he's going home as well, look.
It'll be...
And I won't. But at the same time, how do you feel now you've completed it?
Yeah, very pleased. That's
Are you?
great. Well, I mean, this bike, until a week ago, it hadn't been ridden in 50 years, and I've never ridden it. So what an achievement.
But take a look at the bad, man. If you do have a vintage bike in your garage and you want to have a true adventure, please come on the Pioneer Run.
But if you don't have a 1908 bone shaker and fancy some fun in the sun, you could do a lot worse than Portugal.
I'll tell you what, it's difficult to believe, isn't it? This is 2.5 hours from London, and you're in the most beautiful weather with the most beautiful roads with nothing on it. I mean, for a biker, surely this is paradise. To find out more about riding in Portugal, I'm going to meet up just down the road here with Miguel, who does tours here. Miguel, now tell me, right, these roads are stunning.
Yeah.
Is it just like that all over Portugal?
Yeah, you can
Is
say
it?
that. Yeah, you can say that from Jerez, the north, till Algarve, you have a lot of roads very nice to go and ride, or you have also off-road. And most important, we have a good weather with no rain. So road with no rain, that for the bikers it's
It's
awesome.
paradise to me anyway. I've been riding all day and I really haven't seen many cars. Is it like that all the time?
Yeah, it depends on the roads, but in this area you are just very near the frontier, the border of Spain, so you don't have too much people living here. You are very far from the sea, so because people live by the sea. So here it's always like that.
That's really interesting to me because, you know, obviously if you're riding coast roads in the Mediterranean, etc., it's really busy.
Yeah,
But if you just step back to where we are now,
this is very interior, and you see no houses, only the road.
Portugal is a very motorbike-friendly place. There are plenty of locals on scooters and bigger bikes, and it's easy to rent one.
So what bikes do you use on your tours?
It's the BMWs and the Harleys. It's the both. So when you go to Faro or you go to Lisbon or Porto, these main cities, you can rent the motorcycle easily.
For anyone who hasn't come and ridden here in Portugal, how would you sum it up riding here?
It's I think there's no country like this one.
And on that note, with the sun going down, it's time for me to leave these Portuguese roads and reflect on my wonderful ride.
I'll tell you what, today has truly been a magical experience. Riding here in Portugal is sublime. Now, obviously, this ride is only probably going to be a part of a much bigger ride that you've planned. But whether you're into road riding or off-road riding, come to Portugal. I promise you, you won't be disappointed.
Next time, I cross the border into sunny Spain.
Right, now this is called Valverde del Camino. Isn't it beautiful?
Meet one of the fastest men on two wheels.
Enough of these 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder engines. What about a jet turbine in a bike?
And take my BSA seat to the upholsterers.
How would you stretch that over? Oh dear. There you go.